Welcome in, everybody. We are back. Coach, I know it's been a long time, but super excited. We've got a mock 2.0 for us. So it's going to be pretty big for us to go through our two rounds now, Coach, of a Superflex mock draft. So lots to see here. We're going to throw a draft board up. But, Coach, how you doing?
Hey man, doing good. Been a lot happening. Had I guess you could say, somewhat boring Super Bowl game last night, but life is good.
It was somewhat boring, but it kind of showed, Coach, that you can play some pretty good defense, right? I mean, it certainly was a little bit of the Patriots weren't necessarily the best team. Maybe kind of skated through a little bit of an easy schedule, but I think to an extent, Coach, we have to give them some credit.
Yeah, you're right about that. And that Seahawks defense is phenomenal. You know what I mean? Gosh.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, Coach, let's go ahead and get the draft board up on the board here. And before we get started, want to give a shout out to Jamie. Jamie, what's going on? We appreciate you for being here. I know you had the comment earlier, so we got to get into some stuff with you too here soon. But Coach, let's talk about this draft here. Are you excited for what's in store with this class, or are you kind of down on it like a lot of other people?
I'm kind of down on it a little bit, to be honest, but at the same time, um, there's going to be some depth that shows up as we go. There always is. There's going to be some guys that turn up in later rounds of the NFL draft that hit, sort of like Manon guy did last year. There's going to be guys to keep an eye on. There always is. So people got to you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I think so too, Coach. But I am really excited to see, where some of these guys fall once we get those names kind of in their actual spot. Kind of changes the way we're going to view everything. But Coach, I think there's no better way than just get started right now. Jamie says I'm a Browns fan, so you saw all the exciting punts. That's totally fair. But
Hey,
I
first of all, Jamie's got his quarterback.
Jamie, I'm curious if you're still in here. What's your thoughts on that? Are you riding with Shador? Or do you want the team to go with someone else? I really don't know if there's a correct answer to it, Coach. I think there's so many holes that you got to just kind of got to go with it. No.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to be honest. Like I bet you they go sign a veteran in free agency that they've got an option there to go with Shador.
That I think that it could be a veteran. I mean, we know that Kirk Cousins is probably going to be on the block
Hmm.
or get cut. I mean, so we'll see what happens with him. I'm not a big fan of Shador, but any quarterback will fail in Cleveland. That's fair. It's tough
They
days
still
there in
got Deshaun
Cleveland.
Watson. They still got Watson. Don't forget.
And Dylan Gabriel. I mean, there's options galore there. But Coach,
Oof.
let's get this draft started here. And I'm gonna do the first pick. You'll do the second pick. We'll kind of rotate from there. But let's do the easy pick here, Coach, and let's start with Jeremiah Love. I mean, the running back from Notre Dame, I think, is going to be the chalk 101 pretty much in every single draft, unless there's a super QB needy team at the 101. When we look at Love's profile, he is a do it all, three down bell cow back. I mean, he can be really successful in the receiving game, very comfortable lining up out wide, going to have great hands, great route running. I talked about on my big profile video I did last week that I felt like he had some route running ability like Christian McCaffrey, like those angles, those Texas routes coming out of the backfield. He's really, really comfortable and he finds a way to make people move. He's got great elusiveness. I think the home run speed is there to an extent. At times, I feel like he might, get knocked down a little earlier than you really want. But when we're talking about a guy like Love, it's really just getting nitpicky. I mean, he's 21 years old, all the talent in the world. I think he's going to be really successful wherever he ends up landing.
Well, we talk about landing spot being so important, and it definitely is at the running back position. What's it look like? Is he going to be the guy? Is he going to split carries? Obviously, splitting carries is sort of the norm these days. I'm just curious, how do you view him compared to Ashton Genty?
I'm not sure that he's necessarily that far off from Genty, to be honest. I think they're similar. I think Love might be a little stronger coming out of the backfield, where Genty might be a little bit better absorbing contact, which we saw really from him this year with the Raiders, where he was hit behind the line of scrimmage basically every single play. So I think there's a lot of room to grow for Love and whatever offense he ends up landing in. But I do think that he's not one of these guys that, in my opinion, is going to slot in as an immediate top 5 dynasty player. Where, as last year with Ashton Genty, we saw a lot of people plugging him in as RB1, RB2, RB3, somewhere in that range. I think Love is going to fall somewhere around that, RB8 range, probably. I mean, still, we have to see the landing spot, we have to see the capital. Those are very, very important factors as we're doing these mock drafts and, kind of trying to plan it out before it really even happens. But I do think that he can be up there with Genty.
Yeah, like I can see that. Like he's definitely explosive. There's no doubt. He's also played a little bit higher competition in college than Genty did too. So hopefully that'll work to his benefit.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and move to the second pick if you're good with that, there, Matt.
Yeah. Who we got here?
Right here, you pretty much have to, in my opinion, take the number 1 quarterback, of course, which is Fernando Mendoza. I don't know if you guys watched, but about a week or so ago, me and Matt did a video about Fernando Mendoza and what we thought about him. He's a guy going to the Raiders that I just wouldn't expect a phenomenal year 1 from him. You got to kind of take this with a grain of salt. You know what you're going to get down the road. Like the guy's a pure pocket passer. He has good vision, has good timing, more than adequate arm to succeed in the NFL. Limited when it comes to his mobility. He's not exactly the fastest guy around. If things work out well for him, he is a Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins kind of quarterback, which is fine. But at the same time, his fantasy ceiling is a little small, so to speak. With those guys, for instance, if it all works out really well, you've got a good solid QB2 in Superflex. So he's definitely useful, but he's not going to necessarily be the quarterback that puts you over the top. If you're picking here, you probably really need a stud quarterback. I think he can be a really good NFL quarterback. Now, how good of a fantasy quarterback he can be, I think is somewhat limited, especially for the time being. He's going to need some help. He's going to need some more weapons to go with Brock Bowers there in Vegas. I'm sure they will. They'll put some help around him. It's just going to take a little bit of time, but that's okay. So if you're taking him, you kind of know what you're getting.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think the upside for him might be a little bit capped. The actual rushing ability for a guy like Mendoza is extremely limited. While they ran some zone reads and things like that, it's not his game. He's going to be a guy that's going to be in the pocket. When we watched his tape together, Coach, we kind of mentioned in our video that at times it felt like if he was rushed, it kind of things fell apart. He'd get a little bit of his feet messed up, not in necessarily a good position to throw the ball. But to his credit, he's also tough as nails. So he'll stand in there and he'll take a hit and deliver that ball still.
Yeah, and at one place I really does have some room for improvement is in the in boots and anything sprint outs, anything outside the pocket. Like there are times there when it looks a little rough. But he is a phenomenal RPO reader, which is one of his strengths. Indiana's offense was it felt like 85% RPO. So that's something that they'll use a lot in Vegas to help get him comfortable. He didn't really play under center a whole lot in college. So there is that. But I do think that's somewhere he actually can be possibly even more successful. So I wouldn't really look at that as a major hindrance. He's also a high character, good quality team guy. There's a lot of things there you got to like if you're the Raiders.
Yeah, no, I totally would agree, Coach. I think the character part speaks volumes. And if you're in a super flex, like we're presuming here, the value of the quarterback is so significant. I mean, even if he plays just okay, he's going to outproduce his value and it will double, triple, like we see it every single year. So, I mean, if you didn't need a quarterback at the 102, am I going to fault you for not taking him? No, of course not. But a lot of times these teams in the first 3 picks, they need a quarterback. So it makes sense. Mendoza is going to be this high. It doesn't matter. It's just kind of how it goes. Coach, before we move on, Jamie asks, can Mendoza be a top 15 quarterback in Dynasty?
Yeah, can he be? Yes. Next year, maybe. We talk about this a lot. Like quarterbacks that finish the season usually finish. This year is a little different because actually more stayed healthy than normal, believe it or not. But if he finishes the season and is somewhat successful, yeah, I can see him being top 15. That wouldn't shock me.
I mean, there's
Maybe not
weapons
next year,
there.
but
Yeah,
it's
that's
going to
what I
take a
was going
little
to
bit.
say. I think it's going to take time. I wouldn't put him as top 15 right away because I think you've got names like Cam Ward who are right there in that top 15 range that, would you rather have Mendoza or Ward? I think right now I'd rather have Ward, just knowing how he finished the year. Maybe this team adds some weapons. Now, I think that having Genty and Bowers is going to be huge for Mendoza. But, can the Raiders turn around and fix it? That's the question.
Well, now, they got Clint Kubiak coming in there to run the team and, of course, run the offense, and who just got done working with Sam Darnold. And, that's why I said, his ceiling is probably Sam Darnold. So it kind of is what it is. Sam Darnold's solid QB2. Not, like I said before, not really, he's no Lamar Jackson in his prime kind of thing, but still can help you win, fantasy football games.
Totally agree. Well, Coach, let's carry on here. And I think this is kind of when the draft starts to turn to maybe less chalk. I mean, the next three wide receivers oftentimes are the guys that people are going to talk about. I'm really torn on who my wide receiver one is. Early on, I watched Mekhi Lemon. He was my one. I finished watching Tate. I think this past weekend, Coach. I know we were talking earlier. He's really dang good. But I'm going to stick with my gut. I think Mekhi Lemon is the most pro-ready wide receiver right now. I think he slots into any offense and will excel. I think he's got that ability to be a slot guy. He's got the contested catch. He's also a yak monster. While he might lack some, really big-time playmaking, elusiveness, or, having that breakaway speed, I think he makes up for it with toughness, hands, and just reliability and dependability for his quarterback. So I think he's going to be a top 15 pick in this upcoming draft. I think the landing spot will kind of dictate that. The later he falls, probably the better offense he's going to end up being on. So that might be something to monitor and watch. So I'm really excited to see where he goes. He's my wide receiver one, but I wouldn't fault you if you took Tate over him.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. It makes sense. Mekhi Lemon definitely has that Amon-Ra look to him. Like I know you're big on that, and you're big on Lemon, and I get it. That's why for me, I can't help but at this point go Tate right after him, really at the 4, to be honest, because they are both high level wide receivers. I saw something the other day comparing Tate to Justin Jefferson, like they're almost the exact same size and frame in college. Now, obviously, that's an extreme there. But I also, some people comp him to George Pickens, but I think he's more he works hard consistently better than George Pickens ever did. So there is that. Like he's going to be really successful. I feel the same way about Lemon. Like I'm tickled to death to get either one of these two guys.
Yeah, me too. I think if you talk about Tate, he's refined to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are trying to find the right comp for him. Jefferson's interesting because he's really good down the field. And obviously we know what Jefferson can do where he runs, the most dig routes in the NFL or is consistently up there for running the most digs. And I think that Tate's going to excel at that. I mean, he's got the best ball tracking skills of this entire wide receiver class. He can absolutely burn people. I thought his big playability, his spectacular catch, like all the things you want to see from the wide receiver, he's going to do it. Might be a little more limited with the things underneath that are just kind of the mundane aspects of the wide receiver position. But I think, he reminded me a lot of when he runs the on the seam, Coach. He looked kind of like Terry McLaurin. And I get it. I'm a Washington fan. He's an Ohio State player too, so it kind of just seems like that transition there. He's bigger than Terry, though. He's probably a little bit faster than Terry at times, especially game speed. He also has the frame like T. Higgins. I don't think he's as physical as T. Higgins, but he uses his body. He can do those contested catch, those jump balls. But he's also, I don't know, I think he's going to be a good player wherever he goes. And he's probably one of these guys that's going to be a top 10 pick. I mean, some people are mocking him to the Titans.
So let me ask you this: between Lemon and Tate, how much would it factor in for you if one of them was drafted by the Browns? You like that or no?
Personally, no. I don't want any player I like to go to the Browns. It's tough. I mean, if
It seems like
there's
a real possibility.
It totally
for
agree,
one
and
of them,
there's
right?
clear opportunity. That's the next part of wherever you go. If you end up in Cleveland, there's an immediate role for you as the wide receiver one on that team. You can't necessarily say that for all these spots. You know, if I had a dream landing spot, to be honest, I'd love to see either one of these guys in Tennessee. Give Cam Ward a true weapon. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of where I start with, you know, how high could these guys go? Um, Obviously Washington, like I'm a Washington fan. Washington could absolutely use one of these playmakers. Older wide receiver room, older team in general. They have needs all over the place. But I think that whatever team takes Tate or Lemon, I think they're getting an immediate playmaker that's going to step in day one and start contributing.
Yeah, I can't help but agree there. Both those guys can ball.
Yeah. Well, Coach, let's carry on. And I hate to be chalk with my previous draft, but I'm gonna do it. I caught a lot of flack for it when I did it before, and I cannot move off of this. I know a lot of people are going to say Jordan Tyson should be the next pick, but I'm going with Emmett Johnson, the running back from
Oh my
Nebraska.
gosh,
When I
shocker!
watched him, I know it's shocking, but watching his tape, man, I think he's going to be really dang good, Coach. I mean, he can do absolutely everything you want him to do with the ball. He's comfortable out of the backfield. He's got plenty of receiving work. In the last 2 years at Nebraska, he carried the rock. He had one like fourth most rushing yards in the entire FBS this year, averaged over 120 yards per game on the ground. He was fantastic. I really struggled to find a flaw in his game other than pass pro. You could say that he wasn't great at that. He gave up some plays there, but he's comfortable catching the ball in the backfield, and that matters to me. And I think his ability to make people miss, his elusiveness, was evident from the jump. I mean, I know I text you, Coach. I said it in my video. I text you like the first game I was watching. I sent you that Maryland clip where he's just running down the sideline and makes like 10 people miss. He was fantastic. I can't emphasize enough. I think he's going to be a dang good ball player.
Yeah, I mean, the dude's explosive. Like Matt's been on him since day one, and as I watch the clips, you know, you can't help but he just jumps off the screen with his explosiveness, man. Like, you know, Jeremiah Love did that as well, and Evan
Mhm.
Johnson does it just like him. Really, like there's a lot. Like it's like whoa when you watch a running back in college, and that they make you go, oh. When you have that moment, those are the guys that usually end up popping. Like Matt was big on Bucky Irving for that reason, and it really jumped out. Like the explosiveness matters as much as I give Matt crap about consistency and stuff like that. Like Kyron Williams, for instance, the explosiveness really helps the young guys have an early impact.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. I mean, and his play is a lot like Bucky Irving. It's not like he's physically imposing. I mean, Jeremiah Love is over 6 foot. I mean, he's what 215. Emmett Johnson's going to be much smaller than that. I think he's going to measure below 6 foot. He'll probably be right at 200 pounds. But I mean, when you watch him play, he just constantly makes people miss, and that is from my opinion, Coach, I think it's so important to see what these guys can do in college. I mean, he had a 26% missed tackle force percentage this past year at Nebraska, and his career average, I think, was like 27 or 25%, somewhere around that range. So that's pretty good. I mean, to be honest, and again, Nebraska wasn't something to write home about. That wasn't a great team, but he carried the load for that squad.
Yeah, yeah, you're totally right on that. So that brings me to the next guy. You can't help, in my opinion, to go with Jordan Tyson here because of the potential. Like Jordan Tyson had a down year, like obviously compared to the year before at Arizona State, but so did the entire team. Like I really think that's a big part of it. I when I watched the tape actually on the Sam Levitt, I I kind of understand why a little bit. Like I'm just saying I'm not sure he's quite as good, and maybe it was the system and what was around him, but everything in that offense did not look the way it did the year before. Jordan Tyson does have big play potential. You know, where does he land? Is he a team's number one? I mean, he could be at the right place. Typically, these guys are going to be more wide receiver two material. I think he'll go later, a little mid to late first round, in my opinion, in the regular draft. You know, you got teams down in there that really do need some wide receiver help. I mean, whether it be the Steelers or the Bills, you know, there are teams down there that need some help. So it's interesting to see where he'll fall. You know, if he does fall to somebody like the Buffalo Bills, you can't help but like that. Like that's immediate production.
No, I totally agree. I think he's going to be a good player. I just have my concerns of if he'll be a great player. He's got good hands, but from what I watched, I just didn't really see him make a bunch of plays down the field. I mean, it felt like there was just no potential for him to get yards after the catch or force missed tackles, but he's got reliable hands, and I think he's a fine route runner. Whatever team he goes to, it's like you said, probably going to be mid first round would be my guess. Now, some people have him as the wide receiver one, and to your credit, coach, you mentioned the 2024 season was better than 2025. A lot of that comes down to quarterback play, where he was substantially better in all categories: touchdowns, yards per game, catches overall. Like you name the stat, it was better in 2024, and that was a better team. And I think that kind of it deserves to be mentioned, because part of it is going to fall back on, well, what was the situation for him in 2025? And like you mentioned, Sam Levitt, for whatever reason, he's the hot commodity in the transfer portal, but it didn't look that way on tape when you and I were watching.
Yeah, I completely agree. And really, how good your team is does matter. What's the front look like? How good is the running game? They all that really helps open up the play for the wide receivers, and that really does matter.
Yeah. Well, coach, let's carry on here, and I'm going to go with another wide receiver here. I think this is when the draft starts to open up and becomes a wild, wild west as of right now. I mean, you could go any
Yeah, tough
direction:
now.
tight end, quarterback, wide receiver. I'm not in love with the running backs at this spot, but some people are going to be. But however, I am very comfortable taking one of two wide receivers. And let's start with Denzel Boston. I think coming out of Washington, he's got great production. I think he's a do-it-all wide receiver. He's going to step into whatever league or whatever team he gets drafted. He's going to be a guy you can rely on with reliable hands, solid route running, maybe a little bit limited after the catch what he can do, but I think he's so steady, he's going to fit in perfectly no matter what. He's kind of a guy that's gaining some steam, looking like he could probably be a back end first round pick. I know some people are projecting that there might be 8 wide receivers up to 8, probably around 5 that are going to be drafted in the first round. But the first 2 rounds, I think that's going to be wide receiver heavy. I think Boston's going to be a guy that's going to find himself in a nice home and really help a team by being someone that can be reliable for a quarterback and just kind of help steady an offense.
Yeah, I like the Boston pick. Good size, good hands, really strong hands. The dude can really catch.
Mhm.
Um, that matters, and he's seen and been around really good wide receivers too, so that helps as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if we look at the Washington team, it's kind of been over and over and over of solid guys that have production. Now maybe they haven't amounted to anything with Polk. I mean, obviously we've got your boy Rome and with Chicago, but I think it kind of matters what Boston can do going forward. I think it's going to be helpful. Is it crazy to have Boston over Tyson? No, I don't think it's crazy at all. And in fact,
No.
I wouldn't say I'm far off. It's just more, I think Tyson's going to get the higher draft capital and maybe a better landing spot, maybe not. It's one of those things where until we know where these guys fit, it just kind of skews what we can really do, right, Coach?
Yeah, 100%. It changes everything. Boston gets a good landing spot. Tyson gets somewhere where it's muddy. You run away from Boston. Like Matt last year at this time is a huge Matthew Golden fan. Like we all thought Matthew Golden's a really good wide receiver. Well, he gets drafted by Green Bay, and suddenly it's like, oh man, it's just a mess there.
Yeah, we immediately hit I know I did. I panicked, and I remember you guys texted me of like, how upset are you? I was not happy with the landing spot, just because what we know Green Bay does,
Yeah.
and it matters so much with what these guys can do and what output we can kind of expect from them. But Coach, let's carry on here and let's get to the 108. Who do you have?
Well, now's like it really does start getting super messy, in my opinion, at this point moving forward when it comes to these wide receivers and things are slim. Believe it or not, these late first round picks are not ideal right here. But it's gonna come down to landing spot. And I do like a guy here like Casey Concepcion, in my opinion, here, because he can play both in the slot and outside. I think there's a world where he could find himself as a primary slot receiver here. So maybe you can get some value in the right offense for sure. He's a good player. Like he's a really good player, I think, but it's really going to come down to where he falls. Like he's a guy that could fall early second round in the NFL draft. And, where does he end up? Does he end up at Tennessee? or somewhere early in the second round, for
Ooh.
instance, then you got to really like that. You're running to draft him then. So it's going to come down to that with a guy of his caliber.
I would actually love that landing spot, Coach. I think KC. I wrote down in my notes, Coach. I feel like he's always open. Like he's always open. Like somehow he finds a way to create some room. Yeah, I thought he did well working with his quarterback on the scramble drill, trying to find ways to get open and find the open windows. Might get a little lost with man coverage at times and can kind of get blanketed. Solid hands, great footwork, looks to make plays after he catches the ball. I think he's a willing blocker at times, and I think that matters. I mean, maybe I'm the only guy that cares about that stuff. I can throttle. I think that's another thing that's in his game. You can watch him in and out of breaks, and he just throttles that speed. So he's another guy I think is gaining some momentum right now, and justifiably so.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, well, Coach, let's get to the 109 here, and I'm going to open it up. I mean, last time I did my mock, and this is kind of where I said the quarterback 2 is coming. Like, they're going to get drafted. Someone's going to get drafted high, and if they get drafted
Here we
high,
go.
it's going to be slotted in this late first-round pick, and I think this is kind of the spot. Now, who is going to be the quarterback 2? I don't know. It's going to depend on the capital and what team makes the move. We could see the Jets at 16. We could see the Rams at 15. We could see, all sorts of teams could make this trade or make this move to go get a quarterback 2 here for this class. And I'm going to go with right now, in my opinion, who I think the quarterback 2 is, and you'll probably agree with me, Coach, is Garrett Nussmeier. I know we still got some more work to do on Sham Bliss, but we've kind of been just balancing him with all the the eligibility issues with the NCAA. Looks like it's not going to happen for him. But Garrett Nussmeier did himself a bunch of favors by playing in that Senior Bowl just a couple weeks ago. And when we watched the game, Coach, I know both of us were extremely impressed. We went back, we watched more tape together where we looked at 2024, where you could see he definitely had that injury really affecting how well he could play. I think the team at LSU wasn't that good, didn't have a run game, offensive line issues, but Garrett Nussmeier, I was impressed with 2024, Coach. He looks athletic. He looks like a guy that can make those off-platform throws, get outside of the pocket, make some moves, and kind of hit some people downfield. And he did that in the Senior Bowl game, too. He really showcased some of that.
Yeah, it looks very clear to me that he was injured in 25. You can tell his hesitancy to step into throws. He doesn't want to take any hits. You can just tell it looks different. You rewind to 24, looked much better. He is sneaky athletic. He is. He plays good outside the pocket. He has a really good feel for the game. Those injuries didn't look like injuries anymore in the Senior Bowl. He looked like the 2024 Nussmeier again. So I think he's a guy. He's a hot commodity right now. He's rising up draft boards. It'll be interesting. Jamie makes a good point here that he thinks it'll be Ty Simpson. I get that. Like I do get that. It's very possible. There's a lot to monitor and a lot to change when it comes to this over the next month and a half. You think about a guy like Tyler Shuck, who everybody passed on. Like we're drafting him in the 3rd round last year, in the 3rd round of drafts, and he may be the quarterback everybody wished they had.
Yeah.
Come next year, So you got to keep an open mind and look at opportunity. How quick can these guys get on the field?
Yeah, you say it every year, Coach, of the landing spot and what's the competition they have, what's their opportunity, and you consistently have drafted guys that have really, really paid off for you. And I don't want to go through your 3rd round hit list, but it's pretty successful. So you deserve some credit there. But like I said, if you think it's Ty Simpson, Jamie, you might not be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong. The NFL is going to tell us, but my point is whatever quarterback gets that capital, there needs to be one slotted in somewhere around this range of 109, 110, because they pay off their value. I mean, Coach, you mentioned Tyler Shuck, 2nd, 3rd round pick last year. Michael Penix, is he great? No, but remember where he was drafted? The 206 repeatedly. Mm-hmm. Has he outpaid that value? 100%. Like these guys that get drafted later and later in our rookie drafts at the quarterback position, it just shocks me because they don't even have to play well to pay off their value. Bryce Young had a terrible rookie year. came back the very next year and his value was absolutely the same or more. And it's carried over again. Was he good this year? Not really, but his value's higher because he keeps winning games and people see the clutch gene that he has and they think that, oh, well, maybe the Panthers offense is onto something. So I just think that these quarterbacks, they're worth the investment, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. All they got to do is start a few games. If you don't like it, then move him now. Like starting quarterbacks are so valuable. So I'm gonna look at a quarterback also at number 10. Here you go. But
I was
now,
not expecting this.
because it's a former quarterback. It's a tight end, Eli Stowers. So Eli Stowers, 6'4". I really like his route running. Like I really like his the way his strong hands. He can turn a 10-yard catch into 20. You know, he bounces off tackles. He really is a heck of a player. Now, there's going to be a lot of criticism come with Stowers when it comes to his blocking, and I get that. I do think he's willing to improve there. There's a lot of blocking questions with Fannin, with Gadsden, even with Loveland. There are a lot of people saying none of these guys could block, and all three of them turned out to be heck of tight ends this year. I know Stowers was a former quarterback at New Mexico State, got beat out by Diego Pavia for the job there. That's where I was getting the quarterback reference from.
Yeah.
And now he's obviously became a tight end. Like I get him and Sadiq both like are really good tight end prospects. I like Stowers better. I've always been a big Stowers guy. At the same time, if you have a tight end premium, now's a great time to get them. I do think having one really solid tight end is, kind of the final chess piece to put you over the top sometimes in fantasy. So if you can steal one right here, here's a good spot to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're going to catch a lot of flack for having Stowers here as the tight end one of this draft. And, to people that don't know or people that maybe just fall into the just standard chalk it up, it's going to be Sadiq. It doesn't work like that every year, man. Like, sure, the tight end one can sometimes be who we think it is or whatever position it is. But last year was the same way, Coach. I mean, everyone was convinced it was Tyler Warren no matter what. What happens? Loveland gets drafted first. And now it's a debate. Who's the better tight end? I think you and I were on the Loveland side prior to the season kicking off. How's it going to end? I don't know. They're both good players. Stowers is up there with yards per route run, targets, receptions. If you go pull up all the metrics for what he did this past year and you look at the names that he's next to among tight ends, it's an elite group of people. We're talking Kittle, Kyle Pitts, which I know that's kind of a rough one to say, but Trey McBride, Brock Bowers. Like the point is his analytical profile is one that's extremely high. And, there's some untapped potential there of what he can do, especially if he's going to be willing to put his hand in the dirt and block. You mentioned that's going to be a knack on him. Of course it is, but it might not be something that they really rely on him to do as much. I mean, he's going to have to do it some, but he could easily be one of these guys that's running a lot more routes than necessarily putting his hand in the dirt blocking.
Well, Sadiq is a freak athlete. So, I mean, I get there's a lot of things about him that kind of jump off the screen. The thing about Stowers is he's extremely efficient. His route running is fantastic. Like when I see Stowers run routes and catch balls, he makes me think of Evan Ingram. So that's what I really like when it comes to Stowers.
I like that comp, Coach. I mean, he does a lot of those things where he just has that fluidity as an athlete and that ability out of, in and out of breaks, running his routes. I mean, he's a good player, like you mentioned, Coach. But let's continue to carry on here. We've got 10 watching. Would appreciate everyone if they gave us a like. It helps out a bunch. We're really excited to, start kicking off some more of this rookie content now that the season's officially over. Zach's in here. What's going on, Zach? Appreciate you for tuning in as always. But let's carry on here, Coach, with the 111. I'm going to stick at the tight end position, and I'm going to go with Sadiq, the guy you were just talking about. If we're in a tight end premium league, then there's all sorts of things to talk about right here of, which one's going to be better, which one's going to be, a guy that can kind of fill in and get some extra points for you. You mentioned Sadiq has the size. He's got some reliable hands. He did have some drop issues that has to be noted. But I think he's going to be a solid route runner, and he's just physically imposing. Unlike Stowers, he's probably a little more ready to put his hand in the dirt and block, which is going to help him stay on the field. And more likely than not, I think we both expect him to be the first tight end off the board in the actual NFL draft. A lot of people have him as a top 10 prospect. He go as high as, 8 and go as low as maybe probably 15 or to 20. I wouldn't expect him to fall past that, but he's going to be a hot commodity. I think a lot of people are going to have him as the tight end 1. He looks like a pretty good prospect. I don't think he's far off from those guys that were at the top of the class last year, but I do think he's a step below them.
Yeah. We talked a lot about these 2 tight ends. You can't really go wrong with either one. In my opinion, like I like both of these guys. To me, these are the 2 guys I want to come away with one of these 2 if I'm late in the first round, if at all possible. I like both the guys. I just happen to like Stowers a little more.
Yeah. Well, let's close out this first round, Coach. Who you got?
This is a tough one. This is a tough spot to be in right here because, to me, there's not a lot of difference between this pick and mid-second round pick, if I'm being real honest. But I'm going to go with the guy that his measurables I think are going to jump off the screen. I do think he's going to end up getting drafted fairly high. A lot of it's going to come back to his combine time. What's that look like? It's a guy getting the 4.4s. If he does, he's going to be drafted a lot higher than people think right now. That's going to be Chris Brazzell, wide receiver in Tennessee. Great athlete. Like the running backs right here, like a lot of people are thinking Singleton and some of these guys. I don't know, man. I don't really love them. Like I'm going to prefer to, kick the can a little bit when it comes to the running backs. And I may end up taking one here in a minute in the mock, but if I'm taking right here, I'll just wait till later. Unless there's a fantastic landing spot I can't resist. Give me a guy like Chris Brazzell that has a lot of potential, high risk, high reward kind of guy right here. Swing for the fences.
Yeah, it's high risk, but we're talking about a wide receiver out of Tennessee, 6'5". Chris Brazzell is absolutely insane. I think if you go pull his Georgia game where he scores 3 touchdowns and has like 260 yards or something crazy, he goes all over the place. I'm not the biggest Chris Brazzell fan. I know you and I were talking prior to this about our differences on him, so I think that's really interesting to see you take him here. That's not what I was expecting. I think the guy that I'm going to take next is who I thought you were going to take. But Brazzell's gained a lot of momentum. I know we've talked, and it's kind of looking like he's entering that first round territory, kind of aligning with what I was talking about earlier. When we were talking about Boston, was that there could be 8 first round wide receivers. Like some people are mocking that. There's a lot of names in here that could sneak in, and it's kind of a pick your poison. Whereas last year's class was this, we've got all these running backs, all these different types of running backs. This class is kind of shaping out too. We've got all these different wide receivers. You want a slot guy? We got that. You want a gadget guy? He's there too. You want a big X like Brazzell who can absolutely go up there, be a contested catch, be a little bit of a burner. Like you said, if he runs well at the combine, it's going to shoot his stock way up.
Yeah, I 100% agree. If he gets in the 4.4s, high 4.3s somehow, oh my God, they're going to draft him.
Yeah.
Man, to me, like for instance, he looks the same as Dante Thornton, but I think he's a better player right now than Dante Thornton was this time a year ago.
Yeah, and the big issue with Thornton is he couldn't separate from anything. He has all that speed. He made some plays. Still can't. Yeah, he made some plays in preseason, and a lot of people fell in love with that. He was the Randy Moss of the preseason, but it was just limited. But Jamie breaks some news here for us, Coach. The sleeper update came through. Just announced that Njoku will not return to Cleveland. He's going to be testing free agency. So you love that if you're a Harold Fannin Jr. believer or stock owner there.
Well, and this is interesting because me and Matt talk about this a lot. In the NFL now, you need 2 tight ends. Mm-hmm. So that's going to put Cleveland in the market for another tight end somehow, possibly in the draft again. Like you need 2 tight ends to be successful in the NFL.
Yeah, you have to have them. I know we talked a lot last year of when the Bears did take Loveland. Does that mean Cole Kmet's out? And you and I both were adamant of he's not going anywhere. And you know, the 2
everybody's like Cole
well.
Kmet to the Dolphins. I'm like, that's not happening. You need 2.
Yeah, it's too important. So appreciate that update there, Jamie. Sometimes we get caught up in here. So by all means, break all the news for us. Coach, let's get to the second round here. So, again, appreciate everyone tuning in. Be sure to hit the like button for us, helps us out a bunch. Join the Discord if you haven't already. It's free. The link is in the description. You can also check out the Patreon page where you get access to our Dynasty rankings and much more. We're going to have a full rookie profiler that's going to be coming out before the draft. So we're working on that behind the scenes, watching a bunch of tape, continue to go through some of these players. But kicking off the 201 here, Coach, I'm going to go with a name that I think has gained a bunch of steam over the last few weeks based on the fact that he announced that he would not be returning to the previous national champion, Indiana. Omar Cooper, I think, is a name that I think is going to be a better NFL player than he will be a college player. And that's kind of interesting because he was a good college player too. That's who I thought you were going to take at the 112. So I appreciate you for letting him fall to me. I'll pair Jeremiah Love and Omar Cooper here at the 101 spot. So I absolutely love that right there, Coach. I think it's going to be a interesting player to watch how he tests. I know we were talking, I think he's going to test better than Surratt, but I think whatever team gets him is going to get an absolute dog.
Yeah, a bunch of crap. Like, I really wanted Cooper. I took Brazel there because I thought Cooper would get back to me. It's 202. Cooper's he's just good, man. Like, every time you watch him, he just finds a way to produce, Not a lot sexy about his game. He just finds a way to get open and catch the football, right? My favorite third round steal of all time, Puka. I mean, I'm not comparing him to Puka, but in college, Puka just got open and caught the ball, and nothing sexy about his game. You know, so there is that. Like, I really like Cooper's a winner.
Yeah.
Dadgummit.
Look at him now. I mean, Puka's doing all right. He had a good night last night too. So it's been a good night for him. But Chris jumps in, says, "What's up, fellas? Late to the party. Appreciate you for being here, Chris. As always, I'm gonna have to get you on here with Coach sometime. He's been talking about wanting to go through some Raider stuff with you. But let's we got one here too. Coach Jamie says he's been grabbing Omar Cooper in best ball super late. I mean, it's worth the risk. I mean, if he finds himself in a good situation, it's kind of like I mentioned earlier. There's kind of a little bit of a benefit to some of these wide receivers going in the back half of the first round or even in the second round because you might get paired with a better quarterback. I mean, it's going to be a better team overall. Maybe it's difficult, but, we were talking before, the Patriots are going to need a wide receiver. Someone could easily slot into that room and be helpful. I mean, maybe some of these guys grow a little bit. We've got Kyle Williams, but I think that they need a true guy to step in and be there with Diggs if Diggs is going to be a long-term play for him, or at least a short-term, long-term. You know what I mean? But, Coach, let's carry on here to the 202. What do you have for us?
Well, we're getting to the point here where we almost got to take a running back here at some point.
Do we have
we
to?
talk about this a lot. Like, there's not a big I'm gonna go ahead and say it. There's not a big difference between second round running backs and third round running backs in particular. You've got to be careful drafting these second round running backs for name value. It's all about landing spot with running backs in particular, even more than wide receivers. It's all about landing spot. Just a couple guys in the third round, for instance, Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, Kyron Williams. All of those guys have been third round dynasty draft picks in the last few years.
Brian Robinson,
Kyle Monangai. Like, there's a lot there. And you compare that to a guy like last year, you got Bachel Tootin in the second round. Everybody was jumping to grab him in the second round when people were getting Monangai late in the third and free agency after the draft. So you got to be careful. That being said, I said all that to say I'm going to draft a running back anyway. But I'm not going to take Nick Singleton. Everybody's on Nick Singleton. I'm actually going to take the running back that Matt hates, Jonah Coleman from Washington. Really dependable. That's one thing about him. He's very dependable. Strong, small, strong guy, 5'9", like 230. Hit you in the mouth. Good short yardage goal line running back. I could see him splitting carries and kind of being the goal line type of guy in the right scheme.
Yeah, I think you're right, Coach. If he's a do-it-all back, I just think it's low upside. And I get it. A lot of people are going to have him as the RB2. They're going to be complaining we didn't take him at the 107 or 108. They're going to be yelling at us, and we're going to be public enemy number one. But I'm here to tell you.
At least I took him.
At least you took him.
Matt didn't take him.
I didn't, and I probably wouldn't. I'm way lower on on him than most people. I think he struggled to make things happen, forcing moves. I think he's more of a power back, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but he is Rashad White 2.0. He can catch the ball. He's serviceable out of the backfield, but he's just not necessarily that explosive or that elusive or that slippery once the ball gets in his hands. I felt like a lot of his
So
stats
would you
came
say
from when he was beating up bad
Rashad White
teams.
would be terrible to have right here?
No, it wouldn't. It would not have. Yeah, that's the point here, Coach. I think that's the point of you took him at the 202 versus where some people are going to take him at the 108. And I would, and unless the NFL tells us otherwise, and he gets first round draft capital, I'm not doing it. I think he's going to fall to probably day 2, and if he gets that value where he ends up in a good landing spot and he has second round value, then his name is going to be deserved to be higher up there. But I would probably prefer to draft some of these wide receivers over him. I just think his game is limited. I think he's going to be a fine NFL player that probably will play for a decade. I could absolutely see him being in the league for 7 years on a couple different teams where he's an impactful player that's reliable, holds the rock, gets a couple touchdowns, can be used at the goal line, all the things. But I think when it comes down to what are his odds to be impactful for your fantasy lineup where he finishes as, say, a top 24 running back, I think it's less likely. I just don't see him being that guy.
Well, yeah, that's where, Cam Scatterboo, we were all jumping on him about this same spot last year because he went to the Giants. All that. Yeah, keep an eye on all of that.
Yeah. It's the landing spot in the capital. We have to keep that in mind with everything we do right now. I mean, we can put together these drafts, and that's great. It's a good exercise to get ideas of values and where we stand on people. But if the NFL tells us we're wrong, we got to adapt. We've always said be fluid in Dynasty. You don't want to be take locked. You don't want to say, like, I'm not the biggest Jonah Coleman believer, but if he was drafted in the first round, then I have to respect that capital that some team out there believed in him that much to make that pick.
Yep, totally agree.
But all that to say, Coach, I'm going to take a guy that I think is maybe the most split player amongst the community. And I'm really interested to see where the NFL values him, because if he gets in the right spot, he could be an absolute game breaker. But the emphasis is it has to be in the right spot that's going to use him to his abilities. And I'm going to take Zachariah Branch. If it's the second round, which you're the king of saying there's no difference between a second round pick and a third round pick, I'm going to swing for the fences on a guy who might be the most athletic playmaker in this entire class. When you give Branch the ball and you give him touches, good things tend to follow. Does he have his limitations with the ball in his hands? 100% he does. I mean, he's going to have times where you can't trust him to run routes correctly. You can't trust him to really be a guy to make those hard, tough catches through traffic. But if he's going to be used on screens, if he's going to find a way to just use his speed to his ability, he is explosive with the ball. Big-time yak player, punt returner, kick returner. He's got all that in his bag. So it's going to be a gadget player. I mean, it's a lot like Luther Burden's tape from last year of where he's got to find himself in the right situation where they can use him to his strengths. But if he just finds his way to be a true wide receiver 2 for his team, I think he's going to end up failing.
Now, first of all, Luther Burden was always good. Let's stop that. Stop that. Always good. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Like I see a lot of like Zay Flowers comps with him. How you feel about that?
I don't love that comp, to be honest. I mean, Zay Flowers does a bunch of screens, but I think he might be a more developed route runner than Branch. But at the same time, I would argue that Branch is more explosive. I mean, again, if you go pull his tapes and watch his big plays, he makes things happen when he gets the ball in his hands. I mean, he is always a threat to hit a home run. I'm not even sure if there is a good comp for him. I mean, I've seen Percy Harvin be comped to him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a gadgety guy, good with the ball in his hands, kick return. And, you know, I can't say if that's a great comp or not. I don't hate it. Jaden Reed is an interesting one. That's an interesting comp for him. Similar size. Reed's probably a more developed underneath pass or route runner than Branch is, but the things that they can do with the ball in their hand probably similar.
Jaden Reed be much better anywhere besides Green Bay. But
totally agree. That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah. So I'm gonna move to this is where I've got my eye on another quarterback probably. Um, this area 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there. Is there a quarterback that I think can give me a lot of value based on where he's drafted? Sometimes a guy that may come in to be a backup like Tyler Shuck initially, but isn't the guy in front of him isn't great. That's something to keep an eye on. So I'm gonna take Ty Simpson here. Realistically, it could be another quarterback. I just really like this spot for a quarterback in the draft here. Ty Simpson, I was talking to Matt about this. Like, you watch him play, there's a lot of different comps there. I really think his ceiling is a guy like Daniel Jones. So he can give you value if you're smart enough to get off of him at the right time, for instance. Then he can really help you. So you got to make sure of that. Sneaky athletic. Daniel Jones is a good athlete, for instance. Now, maybe not post-surgery and all those things now, but before that, Daniel Jones could move. He could scramble, get out of the pocket, could do a lot of things there. He was a good athlete. Ty Simpson has a little bit of that in him. Not as unathletic as you envision Alabama quarterbacks being at times. So there is that.
Yeah.
Ooh, Jamie just kicked your Branch.
I know.
Face.
I was going to mention that. I mean, Rondale Moore for Branch. That's tough. That's a tough.
Where's Tyler at? Right when we need him.
That's true. Tyler, we need you, brother.
That's
You be in
boy.
here. Like, Rondale Moore was that guy. He was always worth something. What was the name of the guy from the Giants that we both liked?
Wandale? Oh.
No. The bigger guy.
Oh, Hodgins.
Isaiah Hodgins was always worth something. You'd always
say
he's worth
a third. Like 22. Into like 22 for 4 games or something.
Oh,
Tyler threw Rondale Moore in every trade ever.
Okay, that's funny. I appreciate that one, Jamie. That was good. But Coach, you mentioned Ty Simpson. This is absolutely.
But Matt, I don't think he's joking. By the way,
I don't think he is either. I think I don't think he's necessarily wrong. Again, I think it's one of those things where he's got to get to the right spot. But Coach, I think you're right with the quarterback run here of taking someone in this middle second round. Simpson is going to be interesting because he could easily be the QB2 or he could be the QB4. Like I could see a plethora of outcomes. If you watch his tape from earlier in the year, Coach, he was much better to start the season. He looked like one of the best quarterbacks in football. Closing out the year was much tougher. I mean, didn't necessarily look like he was someone you could rely on. You mentioned he's sneaky athletic, not quite Daniel Jones athletic, but to compare him to another Alabama quarterback that you and I talked about before he's probably more athletic than Mac Jones. He might look like him at times in the pocket, but I think he's more athletic than Mac.
Yeah. I get it. The Mac Jones comparisons, I think, are a little, I would say, weak just because it's Alabama.
Yeah.
And it fits. So, but, I mean, I get it.
Well, I'm really in a tough spot here, Coach. I'm going to stick with the board, and I'm going to draft a player that I think the NFL is going to be higher on than me personally, and it's probably going to be higher than a lot of people in the community because I could easily see him getting a higher draft spot than what we might think. Very down 2025 season. I'm going to go with Nick Singleton. We're talking about a guy who last year would have been a first-round pick. Obviously, Penn State had their struggles, and he did not have a good year. Didn't really replicate what he did the season before. Now, they did use Katron Allen. The thing about Singleton that we have to keep in mind is he did have that early breakout. I mean, we go back to his freshman year, 2022, had over 1,000 yards, averaged over 6.5 yards per carry, had 12 touchdowns. Limited work out of the backfield, only 24 catches this year. Not necessarily something that he's always done, but when you look at the portfolio as a whole, very active receiver, got over 20 catches for 3 consecutive years. He's not a guy that I think is going to force the miss. His ability to be elusive, I think, is limited. But all that to say, he has the ideal size and speed that you'd want from the running back position. He's a big, imposing back, 220 pounds, 6 foot, 6'1" but he's got that breakaway speed. If he hits a hole that's open, he's gone. Like, he is gone. But if he runs into any type of contact or any type of, people in his face, he kind of shuts down and struggles a little bit. I was disappointed with his tape this year. His tape last year was better. But Nick Singleton is going to be an interesting case for what do we do with him. And again, I think the NFL is going to be someone that kind of drafts him probably on day 2, which is going to make his dynasty value shoot up a little bit to somewhere around this range.
Yeah, he's definitely the more explosive of the 2 Penn State running backs, without a doubt. I'm with you there. Like, I'm not very high on Nick Singleton, but I think the NFL is that because of his explosiveness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense to me. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I was going to pick this guy, and just because you took Nick Singleton doesn't mean I'm going to pivot off of it. I'm going to stick with it anyway, and I'm going to do it just because. I am going to take Katron Allen right here. So listen. I have a feeling now, based on landing spot, can dictate everything, but I think he's going to end up being a solid NFL running back. There's a little bit of Kyron Williams in there. Not explosive, but really, really consistent, dependable. He's a guy that could go somewhere and be a backup and find his way into starting, or splitting carries. Next thing you know, he's better and more dependable than the other guys. This dude is Penn State's all-time leading rusher. Like, let's let that sink in a minute. He's their all-time leading rusher. They've had some pretty good ones. And he's been splitting carries with Nick Singleton, and he's Penn State's all-time leading rusher, and everybody just glosses over it like he can't play. So I do think he's capable. I think he's a decent route runner, maybe not the greatest route runner necessarily out of the backfield. But that being said, he can carry the ball. He can be dependable in the right spot. I think he's going to have a successful NFL career.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if you look at the profile of Allen, he is a guy that kind of just did it all and gets forgotten about. But at the same time, Coach, my comp for him, I'm biased. Sometimes I do a lot of Washington players just because I've seen so many of them. He reminds me of Alfred Morris. Like, he's just a solid back. Like, he just does things the right way. It's not necessarily the sexiest pick. It's not necessarily a guy that's going to, just hit a home run or make 20 people miss, but he's going to run the play as it's supposed to be run, and he's going to do the right thing pretty much every single time. So I don't hate the pick there. Again, we're kind of in that range of when we get to this spot, some of these guys are going to be all over the place with a mixed bag of where they'll actually finish up or kind of how they'll be. But I think it's a solid pick, Coach. Do want to point out, Jamie mentioned Singleton got injured at the Senior Bowl and with a broken foot. You are correct. He did break his foot at one of the practices at the Senior Bowl. But from what I've read is it doesn't look that serious, and they just expect him to basically be out for about a month or 2. So he probably won't really participate at the combine, but maybe has a private pro day that he'll end up be doing some of those things. Unless I'm wrong, I mean, from what I've read, it doesn't look like it's something to be that serious where he'll miss a bunch of time. But certainly, again, the NFL is going to give us the value for where these guys stand. And I think Singleton's going to be a guy that gets drafted higher than some people think. Even if it's a guy I don't necessarily like, if he gets that early capital, then I'm going to take a chance on him.
Yeah, like, I get it. And, broken foot, depending on, I forgot the level of that injury. I knew he had a broken foot. Couldn't be nothing really. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think it was I don't even remember, 5th metatarsal or something like that.
5th metatarsal, which is very common. You get stepped on right there on the side of the foot. 4 to 6 weeks. He's back.
Yeah, again, I don't think it's anything too serious, but of course, you never know. I mean, it could be something that plagues him. But moving right along, Coach, at the 207 here, I'm going to go with a guy that I think was gaining some hype. Looks like he could be a fringe first-round pick, and it's going to be Malachi Fields. I watched his tape, and I liked him more than kind of where we started in this process. He goes to the Senior Bowl, had what a lot of people are calling the catch of the week at the Senior Bowl, played well there, and then his value started creeping up into that first round. Don't love him at that price, but I love him in a spot like this. It's similar to Jack Besh last year where he kind of does all the right things. Now, I don't think him and Besh are the same players. I think Malachi Fields has the opportunity to be a true X, a true big X for someone. Don't think he's to the level of George Pickens like some people are comping him to, but I do think he reminds me a lot of Allen Robinson. Like, he's going to be a chain mover, a guy that can just get it done, run out there, whether it's an out, whether it's an in, or, just a comeback. I think he's going to be a reliable weapon for some offense to move the chains and keep the offense out there.
Yeah, I like that. You start getting in mid-second round, you're taking receivers that you hope will hit. Like there's a lot of these guys. Receivers are very volatile in this second round range. Some of them hit big, some of them miss massively. So there are a lot of these guys that, whether it's this guy Matt's taking or the next guy I'm taking, which is Elijah Surratt, I think in both instances, there's a lot of upside and there's a lot of bust potential. Elijah Surratt, really good route runner. His separation is questionable. Some of the comps that I read the other day about him, I saw a Nico Collins comp. That's a stretch to me.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Surratt fan. 15 touchdowns does matter. He finds his way in the end zone, but heck, everybody got in the end zone for Indiana this year, so there's that. But he was very successful, has good hands, really good at contested catches, is like back shoulder fade after back shoulder fade. So you take a shot on a guy like Surratt here.
Yeah, those guys are very similar. Like you mentioned, the separation issues, I think he applies to both of them. I mean, Fields, I think he might actually run okay, but to me, watching the tape, it didn't really show up. Kind of the same with Surratt. Like he does enough to catch the ball, big contested play, guy you can rely on. You mentioned the back shoulder fades. Indiana threw like 50 of those a game, it felt like.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not sure he's going to be a guy that can stretch the field and make those big plays downfield. But they're solid players. I mean, especially Surratt. Like he's a proven reliable asset for a quarterback. Maybe he's a guy that Vegas takes a chance on to just see if he can kind of pair with Mendoza and do some of those same things down the road. So I don't hate that pick there, Coach. But what I will do here at the 209 is I'm just going to double stack the 109 spot, and I'm going to go with another quarterback. I'm going to go with Chambliss. I'm going to practice what I preach, and that if this guy gets some sort of value, he's going to be worth something, and he'll outpay the cost of the 209. Again, I hate to mention Tyler Shuck, but it's a lot like Tyler Shuck. We were drafting him here at the 209 to the 212, even in the third round at times, just because he had that opportunity. If Chambliss or Simpson or whatever quarterback is available around this spot is drafted in the second or third round, I'm taking the chance. If they can find a way on the field, they're going to massively outpay the cost.
Yeah, I totally agree. And without a doubt, and different than the other guys, he's the best athlete of the group, right? Mm-hmm. So if he works out and he gets on the field, he's going to really help you in fantasy for that aspect alone. Yeah, and the dude's a winner. Like everywhere he goes, he wins.
That's true too. He's
done
that
it. Matters. Yeah,
well, take us to the 210, Coach.
Yeah, well, it's getting hard now. You know what I mean? Like you look down through here, it's like, ugh. Now I tell you what, like, and maybe it's because I have an affinity for taking tight ends and believing in tight ends, but I'm gonna take a tight end here. And I'm going to go with Michael Trigg out of Baylor. I mean, the dude is just a monster. Great hands, a little bit old. So there is that 23, a little bit concerning there. But great yak, clearly a great athlete. He runs away from dudes in space. There's a lot to like about Trigg. A lot of upside there if he falls in the right spot.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't had a chance or you haven't heard of Michael Trigg, go pull up his highlights because it's insane. Like he is out there holding that ball like it's a loaf of bread. And I saw someone asked him, like, how do you feel about that? Like, don't you think you should secure the ball? And he said, sometimes I feel like that's the best way for me to keep it away from people because he's a monster. I mean, he's huge and his hands are. I don't know what they're going to measure, Coach, but they're going to be ginormous. Like it's going to be the DeAndre Hopkins situation where he wears like the 5X glove that they have to custom make because he's just a monster of a human being. And he's a lot like Sadiq and Stowers of he could easily be the guy that's the tight end 2 of this group. Like that wouldn't shock me if some team took a chance on him just from the potential. I mean, he's a solid pass catcher. I mean, he's got good hands. He can run some routes. I mean, you mentioned he does find a way to sometimes run away from people. And at his size, that's a scary thought. I mean, again,
right.
It's just a monster out there.
Yep. Totally. I'm with you there.
Well, Coach, I'm torn here because I feel like the pick that people should be doing will be Jadarian Bryce, the running back from Notre Dame. I mean, a lot of people are going to really like what he can do, but I only have one more pick, and I'm sorry, I'm not a Bryce believer, so I'm going to let someone else take him, and maybe that's you. And I'm going to go with Ted Hurst, the wide receiver from Georgia State, putting on a show and really kind of showing what he can be. And he's one of the highest risers right now, I think, in the entire draft process. And I think he's going to be a big time playmaker for some team. And I think he's going to be a guy that's drafted on day 2 that immediately slots in as a wide receiver 2 on some team.
Yeah, I really like that. I'm not a big Price fan either, so I get it. He also stood out at the Senior Bowl, so you can't help but love that either. I think I'm gonna go with the other Senior Bowl standout because it's going to be interesting to see what happens here with Tyron Montgomery. Yeah, I'm really stepping out here. I like Jacoby Lane, but I'm gonna go Montgomery because he did stand out so much at the Senior Bowl. I'm really interested to see where the NFL values him at. Things you got to watch for in the draft. Like we talked about this with Isaac Tesla last year. If you see teams in the middle of the draft trading picks to get someone, that means they plan on really using them. So you got to keep an eye on those things throughout the draft. So I'm going to take Tyron Montgomery here. He might not even be a selectable for you.
He is not on here. I double checked to make sure I was spelling his name right, and he is not on here yet. So for those of you that aren't familiar, Coach, I know if you want to introduce him, you can, or I'll let you keep going if you want.
No, D3 wide receiver out of John Carroll, never even played football until he was in college. I mean, it is a crazy story. And he went to the Senior Bowl, and people couldn't even cover the dude at the Senior Bowl. So it's going to be interesting, intriguing what happens there. I realize that's a bit of a reach. I really wanted to use this pick sort of just so we could talk about him for a minute. What did you see about him that you like?
I mean, explosive. He did absolutely everything you could against. I mean, let's keep in mind, like you mentioned, Coach, D3, John Carroll University. Not everyone's going to say, well, he didn't play in one. He was playing plumbers. Well, he went to the Senior Bowl, and whether we want to talk about them being, star players, they were good players in college. There's some guys there that are going to start in the NFL, be playmakers in the NFL, and he consistently made plays, made people miss, got open on routes, showed great hands. He's going against some of the best corners in the country and was making them look silly. So I thought he did himself numbers. Even a guy like him, hasn't been involved in football very, very long. So it's something to keep in mind with what he can do, Coach. Is it an early pick like you mentioned here? Sure, of course it is. But, last year we spent a lot of time in the second and third round when we were closing out these drafts talking about sleepers that we were looking at. So I think that's the perfect, transition here. Like I said, he's not available on sleeper. So I put Messidor on here just because you're a Miami guy. So I saw a good play of Messidor today, and he just absolutely was making the guard look silly. So we'll see where those big guys up front end up landing. But John Carroll University, Coach, can we talk about how it's the most prevalent D3 football school? They produced not only possibly Montgomery, but they produced my personal hero and hopefully future Hall of Famer London Fletcher and the great Don Shula.
There you go. That without a doubt. I mean, London Fletcher, the greatest linebacker of all time, right?
I would say so. I mean, his stats are identical to Ray Lewis. I'm just going to say it. They're identical. Go look it up.
Yeah, I'm with you. He was a good player. There's no doubt about that.
Well,
who's a guy, if you were going to have to take one person in the third round, who would you have your eye on here?
My next pick, that's a good question, Coach. Who would my next pick end up being?
Let's just say your mid-third round you hope to come away with.
Ooh. If I'm in the mid-third round, who can I come away with? I'm interested in probably a guy like Jacoby Lane. That's an interesting name to watch as we move forward. Jeremy Bernard, the slot from Alabama, was kind of wasting away, finds his way into some playing of time out of Alabama and really, really helped this team this past year. Ryan Williams was the guy, you know, we all thought would step up because he had the great freshman season and kind of didn't really perform this past season. But Bernard was a big playmaker, and I think he could easily be a guy that slots into the NFL as a true slot. Jamie says Chris Bell. We were talking about him before the stream, so it's interesting. I'm not as big a fan of Chris Bell. He was actually the first wide receiver I watched because I was really interested to see what he could do. The injury that he suffered is going to be really telling for me. I mean, if you're not familiar, December 10th, he blew out his knee or had a surgery on his knee. I can't remember, one of the two. But anyways, December was the injury date. So that's going to be something that could definitely impact what he could do. But he had a chance to put on a show at the Combine.
Yeah. I'm with you there on Chris Bell. A guy I'll be looking at is Mike Washington Jr. I love to hunt third-round running backs, big, strong. Jamie's on it, right on cue, Jamie. We almost said that at the same time. I definitely like him in the third round, without a doubt. I like some third-round tight ends. Roush at Stanford, you know, you got to keep your eye on some of those third-round tight ends. And any late quarterback dart throw.
I mean, I know you're going to love the quarterback dart throw because one of these guys is inevitably going to fall to the third round. I mean, again, we're doing this without landing spots, without draft capital, so we don't really know. We're just kind of presuming with the value we're currently associating with them with. You said Mike Washington. I am not a Mike Washington believer. I know he had the fast plays at the Senior Bowl. I know he's got, you know, some plays that he had at Arkansas where he just runs away from people. I think he's athletic enough where he's going to show that speed. He's not one of those guys that's huge. I think he measured in at 6'2", almost 6'3" at the Combine. I mean, he looks like Brian Robinson to me. You know, okay out of the backfield. I thought he's a little bit limited coming out of the backfield, which pairs perfectly, coach, as your third-round running back. Brian Robinson was a previous third-round guy that you drafted back in his heyday. But I just find that,
Which gave excellent value, right, over a couple years.
Totally agree. If he doesn't, you know, hit the hole and have it wide open, if anybody touches him, I felt like he was going down. Now, again, there's a few plays out there that everyone's circulating right now where he makes people miss. But in my opinion, there's a reason why there's only a few plays we're seeing where he makes everyone miss. But, hey, you never know. I've been wrong before.
Well, everybody can't be Kyle Monangai, you know?
Everyone can't be Kyle Monangai, coach. That's correct. Another name that I thought was interesting, a guy that was really important to his team. He's got the build. I think he reminds me a little bit of Jordan Mason, maybe some Tank Bigsby, is Le'Veon Moss from Texas A&M. He's a guy that can kind of do it all. Had some injury issues this past season. I think he has good eyes and pass pro. I'm really comfortable back there with the quarterback. He's got enough power to kind of get those plays. I thought he showcased some solid receiving work, no receiving work, but I think he's got the potential to do it. Just didn't really get that opportunity. So I'm interested to see where he ends up. But he's a guy that I think can really carry a load, run the rock when he gets the chance, and be kind of a hopeful handcuff for whoever gets him.
How do you feel about a guy like Jaden Ott, Matt?
Ott is interesting. Now, I had the benefit of I'm in Oklahoma country, so I've watched a lot of OU games, and I was not necessarily really
like
impressed.
It or not.
Yeah, like it or not is a great way to put it. I wasn't really impressed with what he did. I know he had a pretty good Senior Bowl. A lot of people are going to point to his footwork where he showcased some speed and some ability to, really possibly make people miss. He was at Cal before, right? He was on that really good Cal team with Mendoza, and that whole defense got
really
drafted.
Good offense.
Yeah. And so I think that he kind of had a better system there where they were spread out, and he got to take advantage of that with lighter boxes a little bit. And, it didn't turn out the way he wanted at OU, but I will say this much. The character of him out here is extremely high. They all love him out here.
That's cool.
So I think that's interesting.
I'll tell you a couple quarterbacks I have my eye on that I think will get drafted, for instance. Now where all that matters a lot, but that's Cade Klubnik. I got everybody was really high on coming into the season. Season didn't go well for Clemson. He's a bit of an enigma, but a really good athlete. So that's something to keep in mind. Does he get drafted and where? and Carson Beck. Same way with Carson Beck, who, even as a Miami fan, I'm not super high on Carson Beck. Some of his decision making, I think more than anything, Miami's play calling told me a lot about Carson Beck over the course of the season. You saw a much more controlled game management type of offense with Carson Beck. Now, that could also be indicative of how good Miami's defense was. So there is that. But it was very, very conservative compared to the Cam Ward offense. Now, granted, they came in the game knowing they needed to score 50 with Cam Ward, so maybe that's why. But Carson Beck just, I don't know. But he has prototypical size, experience. I could see him getting drafted somewhere late, very Will Howard-like, so that's something to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Of a guy that could find his way in the right spot, maybe. I'm not saying he's the same player as Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders, but if he gets in the right offense where he kind of steps right into being a guy that gets a shot, Beck is interesting. Like you mentioned, he's played a ton of games, like a ton of games.
Mm-hmm.
So he's experienced at times. Is he inconsistent? 100%. But he has shown his ability to play. Jamie mentions, where do we see Jamari Taylor, the running back from Virginia, going? He's another one of these guys that I think is going to be a third-round player, probably drafted on day 3 of the draft. But I have not completed the running back position, so I still have more to watch on Jamari Taylor. And help me out, Coach. Can you think of the name of the running back from Virginia Tech? I'm totally blanking on his name.
Are you talking about Tootin?
No. This year, there's another one coming from Virginia Tech. I'm totally blanking.
I need to ask Everett. Where's Everett? I need to ask Everett.
Yeah, whatever his name is, that's another one that I know I need to watch some more on. And then obviously Adam Randall from Clemson is interesting. Kind of another guy that's gaining some speed. I know, Coach, I was telling you earlier that for whatever reason, it feels like all these Clemson guys are rising in the ranks, but they didn't do anything on the field this year. So there's still some names that I think can definitely impact things. And again, wherever they end up getting capital, wherever they get their landing spot, it's going to change everything. So we have
to talking about Hawkins, Marcellus Hawkins?
Yes.
Yes, or Terrion.
Terrion Stewart. Terrion Stewart.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Terrion Stewart. Thanks, Jamie. So I think there's several names still that I have to go through. I know we're watching Sham Bliss sometime here soon, Coach. That's kind of our next quarterback that you and I were going to go through. Because, again, we were just kind of waiting on what's going to happen with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he missed a great opportunity at Senior Bowl, too. That kind of stinks for him.
Yeah, and there was a spot waiting for him. And so you hate to see that he missed that. But, Coach, we do have a question here from Philip. So let's answer this one before we certainly get out of here. Says, I have the 112, but play in a 12-man Superflex non-PPR, no tight end premium league. Any idea who lands at the 112? I'm set at wide receiver and tight end and format. Devalues those positions because everyone's looking for that quarterback and running back combo, Coach. So knowing that these quarterbacks are probably going to shoot up the board in this league, it might actually give you some value at those positions. Maybe a guy like Boston falls to the 112. I know you don't need the wide receiver position, but it might be something to keep in mind if you get to that point.
It's probably looking like a Nick Singleton spot at a 112 if you're hunting running back, right?
Yeah. Katron Allen, maybe Price, sorry, if he falls here. Because if your league is valuing that running back position a little bit higher, I would expect Love is gone for sure. Johnson's gone for sure. Coleman will probably be gone. But again, I think it might pair to getting some value at that wide receiver position. Maybe this is a league that doesn't necessarily value what Mekhi Lemon does since it's non-PPR, and he's a guy that could catch a ton of balls. Maybe he falls to the 112. Maybe that's a little far in my opinion, but you never know with league settings, and if they're valuing the quarterback, running back really high, it could really benefit you to get one of these guys that you might not otherwise have a chance to get.
Yep. That makes complete sense to me. You might could get a quarterback there depending on what happens. So, you just got to be fluid, be ready to adjust.
Yep.
Think landing spot. Who can get on the field first.
Yeah, but Philip, if you haven't already, be sure to join the Discord. There's a whole Dynasty throw your questions in there. Always trade advice. We're certainly there to help. And again, we're going to have a whole bunch of rookie material coming out here on the Face Off Sports Network. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, like the stream. It helps us out a ton. Coach, you ready to get out of here?
Yeah, man.
Well, we appreciate everyone for being here. We'll be sure to probably have another mock draft come up here soon as we continue to work through these players. I know, Coach, we're probably planning on doing a true NFL mock where we're going to go through the first 32 picks, figure out who's going to go where. We're going to have some rookie rankings coming out here soon. So stay tuned for so much more on the Face Off Sports Network. Until then, we'll catch you in the next one. Oof.